Okay, good morning everyone, and Chazak, Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Monday morning. Monday morning, as we are studying a new parashat Miketz. The word Miketz comes from the word ketz, which means end. The Midrash Rabbah begins this week's parasha with a famous pasuk in Iyov. The pasuk says, Ketz sam lachoshech. There is an end to darkness. There is a limit to challenges, to difficulties. Yosef's end arrived. The end of darkness arrived. At the end of 2 years, right after it was decreed that he should suffer for X amount of years, when that time came, when the sentence was up, Yosef left jail. Paro had a dream, and in this dream he can't find any interpretation. And the butler tells Paro, I remember in jail there was a guy, Yosef, who knew how to interpret. So Paro says, well, bring him over here. And Yosef comes in front of Paro and he interprets the dream. And Paro is fascinated. And eventually he becomes the king, viceroy. And most people, when they read this pasuk, they think that Yosef came out of jail because he interpreted Paro's dream. And the Midrash is teaching you the exact opposite. Yosef had to come out of jail. And therefore, Paro had a dream. Ketz sam lachoshech. There was a due date on Yosef's suffering. Yosef was meant to be in prison for X amount of years. And when those years were up, he was coming out. He was coming out regardless of any other dream or anything happening. It's not that Yosef came out because there was a dream. There was a dream because Yosef had to come out. This is what Midrash is teaching us. It's a very powerful lesson, my friends, in how to see the circumstances of our lives, how to understand bitachon. This is what the Beit HaLevi teaches us. He set a limit to the darkness. A person that's going through challenges, a person is supposed to make money. He didn't make money because he has a business that's successful. He didn't make money because Apple went up or whatever. He shorted Google. God had to short Google because this guy was supposed to make money this year. And that is a very, very powerful way of understanding the events in our lives. Ketz sam lachoshech. There is an end to the choshech that every person is supposed to experience. And the Midrash says as follows. Ashrei hagever asher sam Hashem miftacho. Midrash quotes pasuk in Tehillim chapter 40. Praiseworthy is the man who has made Hashem his trust. Who is this referring to? Who is this gever that trusted in God? Ze Yosef. This is Yosef. Why? Velo pana el rehavim. He did not turn to the arrogant. Al yedeh she'amar lesar hamashkim zechartani vehizkartani nitosef lo shte shanim. Talking about Yosef, again, he had bitachon and he didn't turn to the arrogant. Now obviously the Midrash right away, we have a question. Because we know Yosef was punished for turning to the arrogant. He did turn to the butler. He was punished precisely because he turned to the butler. So what does the Midrash mean when it says that Yosef didn't turn to other people? Velo pana el rehavim. We know Yosef is punished for 2 years in jail precisely because he put his trust in the butler. But the idea over here is that the rabbis are telling us something very interesting. That it's because Yosef was on such a high level of bitachon. Ashrei hagever. You want to know what's a paragon of bitachon? You want to know what kind of level we expect of a person of bitachon? We learn it from Yosef. From the fact that he was punished for putting his trust in a butler. Now usually for someone like me and you, that wouldn't be a problem. There's no sin in doing what's called due diligence. for a person to do what's called hishtadlut in Hebrew. A person is obligated to try, to search. But Yosef was punished for doing that. How could it be? Must be if Yosef was punished for doing even a small amount of extra hishtadlut. This is the level of bitachon that he was on. He was on such a high level that for someone like him, that was considered not okay. And you learn from Yosef, from the fact that he was punished, that he was such a tzaddik, that he was such a Baal bitachon. But my friends, I want to share with you today the ending of this midrash. Because we could talk a lot about bitachon and hishtadlut and faith and trust and due diligence and the seesaw, and the more faith you have, the less due diligence you're supposed to be doing, or all the other philosophies or opinions amongst the great commentaries. But I want to read to you the ending of this midrash. Midrash says, Ki mebet ha'asurim yatsa lemloch. Pasuk says in Kohelet, from the prison he emerged to reign. Ze Yosef, again, it's referring to Yosef. Sheyatsa mebet ha'asurim shel Paro. He came out of the prison of Paro. We know that there were different jails back then. The jail that Yosef was in was not a regular, white collar jail. He was in the jail cell of all the kings, the people that the king imprisoned. Special jail. That's why the butler were there, the baker were there. This was a high line jail cell, prison. Yosef was in this prison of Paro. Vaishlach Paro, and Paro summons him. And look what it says over here. He summons Yosef. Ki gam b'malchuto nolad rash. While even in his reign, he was born poor. B'malchuto shel Yosef nolda reshto shel Potifera. Yosef becomes a king from rags to riches. But not from rags to riches. From poor to a king. This is almost impossible. It's very hard to imagine how in the world did they get away with this. Matter of fact, you should know, when Paro was going to hire, when he was appointing Yosef, all of the advisors of Paro, they said, "Are you out of your mind? It's one thing if you want to free the guy, you want to take him out of jail, but you want to give the guy king? The guy's a nobody. It just doesn't work like that." Shlomo HaMelech tells us in Mishlei, Tahat Eved ki yimloch. You don't put a king, a slave, to become a king. You don't do that. How could it be that a successful ruler like Yosef, and by the way, he was very successful, but how does it happen that you have someone who was a slave, who was poor, who was in jail, no years of experience, didn't go to school? Even Moshe Rabbeinu, when we get to Moshe later in the book of Shemot, we're going to read that one of the reasons he grew up in Paro's house is he had to learn royalty. You don't just, a big mistake that a lot of people make in life is they go straight from school to top, CEO. And that's a very big mistake. You cannot jump. Life, you have to go through the process. You have to go through the system. And there's a reason. If you want to become a rabbi, you can't just become a rabbi of a community. You got to take the steps that are necessary. You got to go through first, you got to go to the kollel. You got to go become a teacher in shul, making a few dollars. Then you got to go be a school rebbe. Then you got to go to be an assistant. Then you got to go then you could be a main rabbi. You can't go from nobody to main rabbi. You're going to fall. You can't go from a nobody to CEO of a company. You gotta learn. You gotta be an apprentice. You gotta be an intern. You gotta study from the people that are higher than you. Experience is a very big, very important thing. And when people jump in life the rungs of leadership, they usually fall. Moshe needed to learn royalty, so he went to study by Paro's house. God wanted Moshe born and raised in Paro's home, so he could see what it looks like to be a leader. How is it that Yosef, in all these years in jail, no experience, he comes out and he becomes a very successful leader? How could it be? The Kuzari, there's a very famous book called The Kuzari, written 1,000 years ago, Rabbi Yehuda Levi. And it's a philosophical book on God, purpose, etc. Very good book if you want to read it. It's a conversation between the king and the rabbi, king of Kuzar. Okay. Anyways, the Kuzari writes that a Hasid, a pious person, is very similar to a king. And take a look what he says over there. Just as a king must have control over his subjects, so too the Hasid must control his own kingdom. What is the Hasid's control? What is the Hasid's kingdom? Hasid's kingdom is his body, his self, right? You gotta control. A king must maintain law and order in his kingdom. He has to enact laws that balance the needs of his subjects with the general welfare of the state. King, very difficult. You have to take the needs of the individual and the kings of the country, of the kingdom. You have to weigh it all out. So too the pious man has to grant the needs of the physical, of his physical self, while at the same time exercise self-restraint for the welfare of his soul. So too a Hasid, as we grow in life, will realize the questions of life are not always black and white, allowed or not allowed, mutar and asur. The questions of life become much more nuanced and subtle. And it's not always between right and wrong, but between right and right. And sometimes two decisions are both right, and you have to choose between which one is more right. Questions of life are not always easy to decide. As a person grows and becomes a Hasid, Hasid is pious, we already passed the stage of allowed and not allowed. You're not confronted anymore by should I return the money or not. That's a child's question. Obvious, easy answer. Maybe you won't do it because you're struggling. But when a person's a Hasid, we're already past that question. The questions of a Hasid faces are very, very complicated. Now it's about, should I say something to this person or not say something? And they're both right. Very hard. The pious man has to think about his body, has to think about his soul. I do want to eat something, it's beneficial for me, but also by eating it, maybe I'm going to be indulging. He's not sure, he's conflicted, the Hasid. Just as a king must sometimes wield his authority and punish transgressors, so too the Hasid must sometimes exercise self-discipline and curb or even deny his physical desires by restraint and abstinence. Perishut. Sometimes you got to abstain. So kingship is the hallmark of Hasid. A person is tested in life. Our rabbis say, Ezehu gibor, what's real strength? Hakobesh et yitzro. True strength is a person who's able to control his tests, his temptations. Hakobesh et yitzro. Power is not about controlling others. Power in Judaism is, can I control myself? That is a true Hasid. That is a true king. Joseph was indeed such a Hasid. We know that Yosef, throughout his life, he had tremendous self-control. We know what happened when he was in Egypt, in a foreign culture, filled with pagans and immorality and lust. And Yosef, the brothers, they never dreamed that they would find Yosef pure. They thought, where they looked for him? They searched in the brothel. They searched in the rehab centers. That's where they looked for Yosef. They never thought in their wildest dreams that Yosef would make it out of here. Yosef, somehow, taking what he learned from his father, and we had a class in the past about those 14 years that Yaakov studied in Shem ve'Ever, that he gave to his son Yosef, that he taught Yosef how to remain righteous in a world of unrighteousness. But not only did he stand the test of Egypt and even his master's wife, Potiphar's wife, And he passes with flying colors. And so says the Midrash, where did Yosef become king from? His whole life he was king in training. How do you become from a nobody to a king? He wasn't from nobody to a king. He went through many, many years of self-control, of koveshet yitzro. The Torah, when the Torah tells us, eat this, don't eat that, we have to realize when we're giving our kids rules, Shabbat and kosher, we're giving our kids discipline. We're giving our kids keys to royalty. We're teaching them how to be master over themselves. When a kid at 4 years old knows that I cannot eat something because I'm needed and I have to wait 6 hours, that's a wild concept. You're giving your kid kingship, royalty. He is a king in training. He's learning what it means to control himself. Now when he goes out into the world, it's a walk in the park. Wherever he goes, it's the easiest thing to study for a test, to not eat something because it's not healthy, because my doctor told me no, or because I'm trying to lose weight, or because of health, or because I'm trying to, whatever it is. Of course, my whole life I'm not eating things. Kosher, not kosher, 6 hours, whatever. This is a breeze. Kid is taught from day one, from the beginning, that I gotta control myself. I'm in charge. Not my craving, not my temptation, not my impulse. I want to say something about someone, but for decades I've been taught silence is golden. Lashon hara. You can't talk bad about people. You gotta watch what you say. Now all of a sudden he's in a meeting, or he's in an interview, or someone upsets him, and a normal person that's not trained spits out a comment. This Jew, he's trained. He's digesting what he says. He's percolating. He's, right? He's thinking it over. Maybe I shouldn't say it. He's chewing his cud. Right? This is what a Jew is. Think about it. Maybe no. And for him it's easy because he's been doing this his whole life. We have to realize, my friends, that the Torah, when the Torah gives us all these mitzvot, there's so much benefit. There's so much training for royalty, for excellence, for greatness in the Torah. Torah is giving us keys. How to be master. There's a lady, she was in the grocery store, she's on the line, and she notices the lady next to her, her kid's crying, I want to eat it, I want to eat it, I want the candy. And all of a sudden this lady says to her kid, it's not kosher. And this woman watching, she's very surprised because she sees the lady who says it's not kosher. She's got tattoo, she has a cross. What kind of Jew is that? So she walks over there, she says, forgive me for asking. I noticed you told your kid it's not kosher, but you look like a non-Jew, you look like a Catholic. Are you Jewish? What? She's like, no, I'm not Jewish. She's like, you're not Jewish, so why'd you tell your kid it's not kosher? So the lady said, I don't know, whenever I'm in these grocery stores, I see the Jewish moms tell their kids it's not kosher, and the kid stops crying. So I figured I'll try it too. Not kosher. And boom, magic. The kid stops. Okay, I can't. The kid learns discipline. There's certain things in life that I can't. Where did Yosef learn to be a king? Oh, what do you mean where did he learn to be a king? His whole life. When he couldn't touch Potiphar's wife, he was learning rulership, kingship, control, self-control, discipline. Ezeu gibor. That's what a gibor is. A gibor, a king, a strong person. It's not a person that can beat other people up. Koveshet yitzro, who could control himself. Gabe malchuto nolad rash. He was born. Was in his kingship was born from his poverty, from all the tests that he had when he was in the home of Potiphar's wife. The Midrash, by the way, you should just know, later on, just to fast forward a little bit, Vayomer Paro el Yosef. Paro, he says to Yosef, Re'eh natati odecha al kol eretz Misraim. I am going to appoint you on all of Egypt. Vayasar Paro et taba'ato me'al yado. He took off his ring. Vayiten ota al yad Yosef. He gave it to Yosef. Vayabesh oto begdei shesh, he put on him clothing. Yasem rebid zahav tzavaro, gave him a necklace. Yarkav oto b'rekevet mishneh, he rode him on a chariot. Ikreu lefanav avrech, they yelled in front of him, wise man. He placed them over all of Egypt. He says, I am Paro, and without you, no man may lift his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Later on, the Midrash on this Pasuk, chapter 41, Pasuk 41 and 42, Midrash says, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Yosef was rewarded from heaven as a result of his own deeds. You know why Yosef got all of this greatness? He built it for himself. Piv, shelo nashak be'avera, the mouth that did not kiss Potiphar's wife. Al picha yishak kol ami, by your mouth shall all my people be sustained. Gufo, shelo naga be'avera, the body that did not touch sin. Yalbesh oto, got to wear and be dressed in garments of fine linen. Savar, the neck that did not bend to commit a sin. Where the spine is, the body that did not sin. Yasem Revidzav, he got a necklace. Yadav, the hands that did not sin. He took off his ring and he put it on Paro's, on Yosef's fingers. The legs that didn't tread in sin will be rode on a chariot. Avrech, the thoughts, the mind that did not think to sin, will be called wise mind, Avrech. Yosef over here, Midrash is telling us again that you want to know where Yosef became a king from. You want to know why he got the necklace and the rings and the chariot and all the things. Where did he get his chokhmah from, his intelligence? Because he's training for it his whole life by controlling himself. My friends, we have to realize that when we follow the Torah, when we follow the Mizvot, we are preparing our own selves for greatness. That's the lesson that we learn from our Parashah. That's a lesson that we learn from Yosef. And that is why, by the way, all the way at the end, when the final episode to this saga, when Binyamin is about to be enslaved forever, the Pasuk says, Vayigash elav Yehuda. Yehuda approaches Yosef. And it was a battle between Yehuda and Yosef, which we know is the kings and the kings. Yehuda is a king and Yosef's a king. We have the two Mashiachs, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. And these are two kings in their own right. Even when there was a civil war and the split of the kingdoms, there was one kingdom from Yehuda and the kingdom of Yosef, the north, right? From Yerovam, from Ephraim. Pasuk says, Ki hineh melachim no'adu aberu yahdav. For behold, the kings assembled, they came together. This Pasuk, says the Midrash, who are the kings? Alludes to Yehuda and Yosef. This one was angry over that one was angry over this one. They saw and were indeed astounded. Who saw and was astounded? This is talking about the brothers. It's talking about the brothers that were watching. Their jaws were dropped. They were gasping as they were watching this battle of kings of Yehuda and Yosef. The Shvatim Amru Melachim Medyanim Elu im Elu. If the kings Joseph and Judah are disputing with each other, Anu machpat lanu, of what concern is this to us? We are not going to butt our heads. What are we going to butt our heads into this battle? We're staying out of it. What was it about Joseph and Judah that made the other brothers feel unequal? Surely they were all great. They were all tremendous tzaddikim. Well, what is it that they saw in Judah a king, they saw in Yosef a king? Rav Yosef Yehuda Lei Blach explains that we're talking about over here what we've been saying all along today. That royalty is not what most people perceive. Most people, when they see a king, when they think of a ruler, they conjure up images of someone who's taken power, someone who usurped power on his own. He is in control, he kills, he makes people work for him, he has a lot of people doing his tasks, he's feared, he's an army. But such a king, who is, again, maybe has certain power over others, the moment the people abandon him, this is what we call in English control. Control, right? Power is you're very, very you're at the mercy of the people that they follow you. Imagine one day the people decide they're rebelling against the king. There's no more king. If you watch Gladiator, what's a king? A king is only a king if the people follow him. In melech belo am, without people, there's no king. You need to be people. You need to have people if you want to be a king, right? I'm a king in my bathroom. Who's following you? You need to have people. But that is only the first type of king. It's not really the king that has the nation. It's the nation that makes a king. A true king, however, is not someone who's powerful or controlling, but it's someone who stands out naturally among his compatriots, who has exalted status of stature, of character, of strength of character. A person who, like we said, is kovesh et yitzro, a person who controls himself. His views are not shaped by public opinion. He doesn't do things because they're trending, or because they're popular, or because that's what will get him votes. A true king is someone who knows what's right and does what's right. He's not interested in other people following him. He acts because of his conscience. And he does what's right. He does what's needed. He has integrity. He controls his impulses. He dominates over his yetzer hara. One who can rule all of these forces in himself. Surely, if you could control yourself, if you could lead yourself, then you could lead other people. People, they gravitate to such a person. People are looking for leadership. People are looking to follow a leader. People know who's really a leader and who's really a follower. Deep down, everyone knows which kind of person. We've spoken in the past how sometimes people, they're leaders, but they're really followers. They just do what everyone wants them to do. You know, when politicians, when leaders, when presidents or prime ministers, whoever, when they act based on whatever the people want, because that's what people want, that's what will get them the votes, that's what's going to get them to be, that's not a real leader. You're not a leader. Is someone who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. That's true leadership, my friends. A melech, he's got to be that type of person. If a king is constantly going to be swayed, if a person is going to constantly juggle their position, their opinion, if one day I read Tehillim because everyone in the community is reading Tehillim, and then the next day Tehillim is no longer popular, so I stop reading. People that go to class only because everyone else is going to class. People that listen to a certain class because that's what everyone's listening to. These are called followers, my friends. In life, a person has to be able to do things because they know deep down this is the right thing to do. To build from myself, that I learned that this is something that's worth doing. This is something with value. One who can lead and go and is not constantly turning around to see, is everyone following me? Is this where everyone is? I could sit and do something and there could be no one else doing it, and it's okay because I deep down know this is the right thing to do. And I've got the courage to go, to walk, sometimes even alone. Avraham Avinu, he was like this. He was ivri. He was by himself. He was on the other side. No one was with him. Avraham wasn't a trend follower. He was a trendsetter. People gravitate to such a person. When you know what's right, when you live the way you're supposed to live, maybe temporarily it doesn't look so popular. Maybe temporarily it may seem like no one's following you. But at the end of the day, deep down, people respect such a person. Maybe in the meantime, if you do things differently, they get annoyed at you. They call you names maybe. Oh, you're getting all black hat, you're getting all this, you're getting religious, you're getting that, rabbi. Maybe in the interim a little bit. But deep down, when a person knows what's the right way to live and they follow it, people see in their leadership. Yosef possessed this royal character. He was elevated to a king because his hands knew what not to touch. His mouth knew what not to kiss. His neck knew what not to bend to. His feet knew where not to go. Yosef controlled himself. He didn't go where everyone else was going in Egypt. He didn't live with the adage, when in Rome, do as the Romans. He didn't live like that. Yosef didn't go where everyone was going, just because that's where everyone is going. That's where everyone's vacationing. That's where everyone has their wedding. That's where everyone. Yosef didn't live like that. Yosef didn't care what everyone was doing. Yosef said, what do I know deep down is the right way to live? What do I know deep down is the right thing to do? That's what I'm going to do. Yosef did what was right. That's a king. That's a king. And eventually God says, and even Paro says, even Paro can see, I like that. I like that. Here we go. Come, you're in charge. Of course, a person has to have a lot of tact. It doesn't mean that you should just go and you should just spray everything and do everything and change everything. A person has a lot of wisdom. Yosef was very wise. A lot of times people could take this class that I said and say, oh, you see, Rabbi said, you got to do what's right. Put your foot down. Don't worry about anyone. You have to also know the balance. We have to understand that sometimes there's a way to approach change that we want to make. But ultimately, a person's got to be in control. And this is what Yosef had. Yosef had it, and Yehuda had it. Yehuda, when Tamar admits when Tamar sends the message that she got pregnant from him, she was holding his baby, it was very embarrassing for Yehuda. He could have kept the whole episode a secret, ship her off to, South America, send her money every month, and no one ever hear about it again, right? And what happens in Mexico stays in Mexico, you know what I mean? And Yehuda, instead of killing her and the child, or it ended up being twins, Yehuda did what was the courageous thing, the difficult thing, but the right thing to do. And he admitted, Tzadeka memeni, it's for me. I got her pregnant. And as embarrassing as it was, he showed courage. He showed humility. He showed that he was ready to do what was right for the sake of truth, for the sake of justice. And in there, he was indeed the progenitor of kings. He became the father of Mashiach, Yehuda. Because that's what a king is. And so, the only person that could step up to Yosef, the king, was the other king. The brother said, this is a battle of kings. We better stay out of it. It's none of our business. We're going to just sit back, eat our popcorn and watch. But this is, my friends, what true royalty is. True royalty, true malchut. And as we study the Sefirot, the seventh, the final Sefirah, the final trait, which is kingship. What does kingship mean? Kingship means not control over others, but self-control, discipline. Doing what I know is right, as hard as it may be. That's Gibor, Kovesh et Yitzro. And when I do that, when Yosef does that, when we live like that, we are preparing ourselves for greatness, my friends. We are setting the stage. One day when that call comes, we are going to be ready to lead others, because we have already shown that we can lead ourselves. We'll stop over here. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.